Hi, this is the Manchurian Churro, and today we're going to do a video about the pros and cons of flails. Now, we're not going to go into the history of the flail. Now, I'll say that for like a future video. And I will make a video sometime in the future when I procured myself a flail, and I will bash stuff with it. So we're going to start with the cons first. Let's get the cons out of the way, and then we'll move on to the pros. Alright, so con 1. It's very difficult to defend with. This also applies to a bunch of one-handed weapons, like axes, maces, warhammers. Those types of weapons, they're generally hard to defend with just those weapons because there's really nothing to defend with. The thing is, with these types of weapons, you have to be active in your defense, dodging, hitting aside a weapon, that sort of thing. But there's just nothing really there to use when you're defending. Sure, you can attack you can defend with the flail. You can use the chains. You can wrap around the weapon and move it aside. But in general, it's just tough to defend with these types of weapons. Con 2. Second con is you may or may not risk hitting yourself with the flail head. Now I want to caveat this. If you're someone who is used to a flail, used to using a flail in one way or another, the likelihood of you hitting yourself is very low. But if you're inexperienced, very inexperienced, and don't know how to handle a flail, yeah, you're probably going to hit yourself sometimes. But over time, you're going to learn that you're not going to hit yourself as much when you become more and more experienced with the flail. That is like one of the more common complaints you hear about flails. That and our third con, which is you may or may not possibly entangle the weapon with another weapon or on an object. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, let's say you swing at someone and the chain wraps around and gets a bit stuck, or the weapon wraps around itself. The weapon becomes useless until you can untangle it. I don't buy the entanglement con. There's a video by this YouTube channel I watch from time to time called Scholar General. I'll link his channel in the description. There's a specific video where he goes over the one of these cons of the flail, and he demonstrates with his Chinese flails that it doesn't really tangle much and pretty much unwraps itself from wherever it's hitting. And he's going quite fast too while he's doing it. So I'll link that video there in the description, and it'll be there. So yeah, those are 3 cons. Let's move on to 4 pros, because I couldn't come up with another con. I came up with 4 pros, and that's enough for me. So first pro is that it's difficult to defend against. It goes both ways. It's difficult to defend with, but it's also difficult to defend against. Reason being is because of the head itself. The fact that the head is flexible in the sense of it being 2 separate things chained together. You defend. Let's say you have a shield, right? You have a shield. Doesn't matter what shield. Just you have a shield. Someone goes at you with a flail, swings upward. If you block the shaft, right? Let's say you block the shaft. You didn't block the actual striking head, though. That flail is going to go over your shield and hit you on whatever part of the body it decides to land on. That's an advantage to the flail. And also kind of links to the fact that weapons like these, it's kind of hard to judge where exactly they're going to hit. Because also, the guy can just feint the attack and go somewhere else. Depending on how long you make the flail, you could just redirect the attack. If you go high, you can go to the side. If you go to the side, you can go down low. If you can go down low, you can go up high too. It's quite difficult to defend against because it doesn't matter really where you block the attack, because you're still in danger. Even if you block the head, it's gonna probably just bounce off and he'll go for another attack somewhere else. That's kind of another pro of it, that because of the head the head could just simply bounce off the weapon or shield if you try to block it, that he can just go in for another attack. And all these culminates into this one pro, that the flail is difficult to defend against, especially two-handed flails. Two-handed flails, one-handed flails are quite difficult to defend against because of the nature of chained or roped weapons. Plus, depending on the flail, it also has probably iron reinforcements as well, so that's added weight, more damage to it because of the iron stuff that's on it. Or if it's just fully iron flail heads, then you're really you're kind of in trouble there. Now, second pro, it's dirt cheap. I mean, essentially, the most bare bone flail is just a stick that's tied or chained to another stick that's slightly smaller than the bigger stick. That's the most bare bone version, and you can still do a lot with it. Now, same thing with two-handed flails. Now I'm gonna bring the thing up. If you have something, let's say this is the main shaft of the flail, the two-handed flail. This is 5'4", around there. If you drill a hole and connect the head that's at least from here all the way to here, that is kind of, you're gonna have a lot going for you. Because one, it's a pole arm, so you already have the advantage of leverage. If you have something suspended on here that you can just twirl around and then just do as you do with flails, that's already bad enough for your opponent, because one, he has to deal with the leverage and kinetic strength given to pole arms, but he also has to deal with the head as well, because same thing applies. If you block that shaft, that head's still probably gonna hit. If you hit the head, he'll just pull back and hit you somewhere else. It's even worse if the guy is a very aggressive fighter and is physically strong too, because strength really plays a role in combat. It really does. If you get a strong guy, a very strong guy with a flail, two-handed or one-handed, oh, it's not gonna go well for you most of the time, unless you're like a freaking sword master or whatever. All right, so Pro 3 is that it's easily replaceable, especially with the dirt cheap ones. Because if the main shaft breaks, you can just get another stick and just reattach the rope to the main flail shaft to the flail head. It's just that easy. Or should I say, it's that simple and also potentially easy. If it has stuff like iron reinforcements and stuff, yeah, it gets a bit more expensive and it gets a bit more hard to repair, but overall it's still pretty damn easily replaceable and repairable. If the chain breaks, you just replace the chain. If the iron breaks, you just replace the iron on the flail. It's just that simple. So one, this weapon's dirt cheap. Two, it's easily replaceable. Three, it's difficult to defend against. And the fourth, I say the biggest advantage, as well as the first pro of it being difficult to defend against, the fourth pro that benefits the flail the most is the fact that hand shock is greatly reduced. See, there's a little knack with percussive weapons and axes. And the thing is, if you hit really hard with an axe, mace, or warhammer, because of the amount of force you're putting into it, it tends to go both ways. Most of the force, though, will go into your opponent, but some of the force is going to go back through the shaft and into you, and that's what hand shock. You hear it being talked about in some of the other medieval YouTuber channels of hand shock being a thing with weapons such as these. But with a flail, that problem is greatly reduced, because of the fact that the striking head of the flail is not actually a part of the main shaft of the weapon. Because if the flail was actually attached to the main shaft, then it'll just be a mace, and the maces have a problem with hand shock a lot. But if it's not a part of the main shaft, you hit with the flail head, all the force that is distributed back into the weapon will only be in the flail head and the chains, and not the actual hand. Okay, sure, maybe a few bits more of the force will go into the handle as well, but overall, hand shock is pretty much greatly reduced due to the nature of the flail head. The striking head, your main striking implement of the flail, is not actually attached to the shaft. So hand shock is greatly reduced, and kind of one of the reasons why flails were favored by horsemen. Now, granted, it doesn't mean every horseman, every cavalier in Europe and Asia were using it, but some of them did. And it's smart too, because you don't have the weapon's not gonna jerk out of your hand once you connect with something, because the head is suspended via a chain. But yeah, those are my pros and cons. So let's recap real quick. So con 1, it's difficult to defend with. 2, you risk hitting yourself with the flail head. And 3, you can possibly entangle your weapon and get stuck and render unusable for a temporary amount of time. So, and the 4 pros are: 1, it's difficult to defend against. 2, it's dirt cheap. 3, it's easily repairable. And 4, hand shock is greatly reduced. Boom. that is the video. Next video, I don't know what it will be about. I'll figure something out as per usual. But yeah, thanks for watching. This is the Manchurian General, and I'm signing off.